Hello, Thorpe Creek fourth graders. How are you doing? It's Miss Meyer, and today, artists, we are going to be working on the ant's eye view of a cityscape. And we're going to be using what's called one-point perspective. And so here's some examples of cityscapes that have been done. And I just wanted to show you some examples of what we're going to be doing. There we go, there's another one. And there's one more. And as you can see, they're using the color wheel to create these cities. And we'll talk about that later. And there's a really neat one that's very, very outside of the box that we probably won't try today, but that I just wanted to show you how creative you could get with your cityscapes. So the things that you're going to need for this project are a bowl or something to make a circle with. If you have a bowl at home that's the size of your paper that you're going to be drawing with, that's great. So you'll need to get these items before you start your drawing. So what I got is a bowl from my kitchen and it fits my paper nicely. Now, you'll need to get a white piece of drawing paper, or you can use copy paper. You'll need a ruler. That's really important. If you don't have a ruler, a straight edge will have to do. So what is a straight edge? Well, a straight edge could be anything. I could use anything that has a straight line that I can use to manipulate on my paper. For me, I'm going to use a ruler. You're going to need an eraser. You're going to need a pencil, maybe two for mistakes. And then you will need just a great attitude and some colors later on at the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out, and remember, you can pause this video at any time to stop, get supplies, take a break, redo, rework, and as we go, that's fine. You can just stop and do what you need to do. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take my bowl. I'm going to try to place it on my paper so that I have as much space on the bottom as I do on the top. So I might use my eraser or my fingers to figure that out. All right, that feels good. I'm going to look to the left and the right. That's great. Take my hand, draw my circle around. And I'm going to go around that bowl maybe twice just to make sure that I have a nice circle. Perfect. Great. Now, you don't necessarily have to find the center of your paper. We're going to place a dot as close as we can to the middle of our paper. If it goes, and I'm sorry, I'm working from home, so if you hear my dogs barking, know that I am, hey, that's life, and that's Bowie barking in the background right now. You might hear Bash, you might hear Bela. Basie might want to come up and whack the pencil or my eraser while we're drawing. Just know that this is how life goes as we are working together. And I'm not going to stop this video for dogs barking because I would never get it done. So right now, we're going to place a dot in what we can think of that's the middle. So 1 point perspective, and I'll show you what's happening as we go along, is a way to create space. So when we were looking at our images and we were creating the space in our images that we were looking at, like our reference images, you can see that these buildings look like they're going up tall, like maybe an ant sitting on the ground and looking up at the tall buildings. So it's kind of like an ant's eye view. And I love this one that has a sky, and there's all different ways that you can create this. You can make it at night. You can make different types of buildings, and I'll show you the things that you can make. Remember, this is on you to go through and make things the best way that you can with what we have. And remember, be as creative as you can. And remember, just because I am doing this does not mean that yours has to look exactly like mine. We are all unique artists that have our own different flavor and our own different talents and things like that. So what I would like for you to do is just find the middle the best you can. And if you can't find the middle, no big deal. Do you hear me? Really, it kind of be cool if, we offset it a little bit. It doesn't matter. So I'm gonna find the middle the best I can, and again, I am not using any rhyme or reason. Now, here's the next step. This is going to be called our vanishing point. Our vanishing point is where all of our lines will go back to create that deep space. When we use our ruler for guidelines, the next thing that we're going to be doing, when we use our ruler for guidelines, we need to draw super, super light, because those guidelines or ghost lines are gonna go bye-bye. If we have those and we draw them in super heavy or super dark like this, and we're using copy paper, and we're like, oh, I've got to draw that guideline. Well, watch what happens. I can't erase it fully. No, that's not good. I don't want to be able to see that guideline when I'm done. So I want you to remember, on your guidelines, I want you to draw really lightly with your ruler. And I tend to have a heavy hand when I draw, and I have to remember to draw light too. So we're gonna think about drawing 10 lines that go through our circle and through this vanishing point with our ruler around the paper. Now, I'm left-handed, so left-handed people would hold the ruler with their right hand. Right-handed people are going to hold the ruler with their left hand. Most of you are right-handed. If you're right-handed, this is how it will look. If you're left-handed, this is how it will look. So what I'm going to do is hold my ruler down. I'm going to draw a straight or a line that goes through that vanishing point, just like that. And then I'm going to erase if I go over the edges. So you can see it goes through that dot. I need to make 10 of these lines. So as I work, that was one. I'm gonna make my second one just like this, holding my ruler, making sure it goes through that vanishing point. And you can stop and pause this video at any time. So this is my third, just like this. My fourth. All right, and as I go through, I'm gonna make some skinnier than others. There we go, my fifth. All right, and remember again, your ruler, I'm gonna make this one like skinny like that, because I'm gonna show you how to make sides of buildings and skinnier buildings. Fifth, sixth, seventh, and this is gonna give you an opportunity to make a lot of buildings. Eighth. I'm gonna make sure that that lines up with my vanishing point nicely. So I have ninth and one last one after this. I'm gonna make my 10th. Oh my goodness, now we have all these crazy lines that are going towards this vanishing point that are very light. Very, very, very light. I hope you can see them, artists. All right, so once we've made our lines, we're gonna start making our buildings going back on our cityscape. Now there's some rules that we need to remember. First of all, when the building is closer to the outside of the circle, you're going to have bigger lines. As it goes back towards the vanishing point, your lines are going to get smaller. So let's create a building in this space together. And then when we get done creating this building in this space together, you can kind of do some fun buildings on your own. So I'm going to take this right here, and in this section, I'm gonna turn my paper so you can kind of see this up and down. And please, artists, feel free to move your paper where it feels comfortable for you. So at the bottom of this building, I'm gonna think of lines that go, basically, that go, hold on just a moment. Sorry, friends. That go horizontal to the lines that I've created. So at the bottom of this building, I'm gonna make a big horizontal line, and then I'm gonna make these lines get smaller as they go back in space. So now I'm going to make it, I'm going to make it smaller, smaller. Oh, cool. How cool is that? And smaller. Now, that's the beginning of my building. I'm going to do one more that's a little bit smaller right there for the top of my building. Great. Now that I've seen that, what I'm going to do is I am going to take my ruler and so I've made my building. Now, and I'm also going to draw one more line at the bottom just because I think it needs it right here. So see how these lines are parallel to each other? Each line would look parallel as it goes back into space. All right, so I've started making this building. And now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my vanishing point, and I'm going to zoom this in so you can see a little bit better. I'm going to take my ruler, and remember, mine's on the left side, and I'm going to actually place some dots on the outside. 1, 2, and these can be equal, 3, 4. So I want these to kind of be like the same space that go back to my vanishing point. I'm going to take my ruler now, and remember, pause. So while you're doing this, you need to pause, stop, and wait to go on. All right, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this, and I'm going to find my vanishing point. I'm going to line it up with my dot as best as I can, and I'm going to draw a line from here to the outside to that dot. And I'm going to go through, and I'm going to do the same thing, and again, you can pause as you go. There we go, all the way back. And I'm going to keep on doing that back to the vanishing point. These lines are called perspective lines. They go back to the vanishing point, and they make my art look like it is going back into space. All right, Cardinals, you have made your very first building. All right, I love it. What do you think? So now, let's say we want to make a building that is going, we can see its side, okay? So now, what I want you to do is I want you to think of an arrow. So if I were making an arrow that were going back in space, that would actually be going back in space towards my vanishing point, I want you to think of an arrow. Got it, guys? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these, you're going to have to use 3 of your lines for this. So I'm going to actually move over, because this one's kind of skinny. So I'm going to move over to these 2, and I'm going to move my paper as I go, and I'm going to use these 2 sections right here. You can do it wherever you want on your paper. So there's my vanishing point, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to make an arrow. There's one line going like that, and another line going like this. And again, pause if you need to. Pause if you need to. Now that I've made that arrow, what I'm going to do to make that building look like it has some details in it, I'm going to remember this line right here. And as I go through, I'm going to create more lines like that. So remember, they go smaller as they go back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set some dots in this middle line right here. And you can pause if you need to. I'm going to place a dot here. Then remember, my next dot's going to be a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller as I go back. And as I continue to go back, I'm going to make them smaller and smaller. So now I've placed several dots on my paper, and I'll zoom in a little bit more. It gets kind of hard for me to draw when I zoom in too much, because then it gets a little tricky. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm going to find that first line that I created, and I'm going to move down and try not to move my ruler so that this line is parallel to that line. And now I'm going to go through and find that line again, and go all the way down my paper with my vertical, or I'm sorry, with my lines that are parallel to the other line. So this is showing a building that has, and then when I get to here, I'm gonna go as far as I can. Oh look, I'm starting to see a side of a building. How cool is that? Now I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So find that line, and again, pause when you need to. So you should have paused several times. If you want to watch it one time through and then go back through and pause, you can. And remember, each one of these lines is parallel to the last. All right, and I don't expect any of these to be done, colored in. You know, we take a lot of time with our masterpieces in art. So if you don't get this done today, no big deal. I mean, really, it's a lot of hard work and you're trying. And remember, you might have to do this several times before you get it right. When you're done creating that, if you want to learn how to create a rounded building, so one that would look like round, what you do is just basically, you can take your hand and you can draw like a little sad face. And at the bottom, you can make, you know, that sad face curved here. Remember, bigger at the bottom. And as it goes back in space, you're gonna make it smaller as it goes. And now I have this really cool kind of curved building that I've created in my space right here. As I go through and create my piece, I want you to just use your imagination. I want you to create buildings that look like this. You could add like a little antenna on the top of this building, so I can show you right here. You know, maybe you have a little airplane antenna, and remember, it's going to go back to that vanishing point. And then I'm going to make another one right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and round that for the antenna that goes up. And remember, your buildings don't have to go all the way to the top of your paper. You could have a building that's much smaller. So in this area right here, say, you know, hey, okay, now Miss Meyer, I don't know if I want to make a skinny building like that. I made you draw those 10 lines just to have a guide. So now maybe I want a bigger building. Well, guess what? I drew that guideline really light. So now I can make a bigger building that's smaller right here. And maybe I want to have a fun looking roof hanging off of it. And you can add details later like that. So now I've started my building. And now maybe I want to create some windows in this building. So I'm going to go back to my vanishing point. Again, pause if you need a pause. I'm going to actually go to the bottom and I'm going to place a dot here to know where I'm going to go, like connect the dots. So I want my windows to be that size for this set of windows here. I might have a second set of windows here, and I might have a third set of windows here. And you can watch me first and redo and repause if you need to. So now I'm going to create some windows. So the dot, my vanishing point, I'm going to line up with this dot. I'm going to draw a light line because I'm going to erase some of this out. I'm going to do the same thing, find my dot, go to my vanishing point, and now I'm creating some perspective lines that go back in space, because remember, things that are closer to you are going to be bigger. Like if my hand's really close to you right now, it's really, you know, big. My hand that's behind it looks a lot smaller. That's kind of what perspective is. It's putting things in space. So as I'm doing this, things are going back into space, and I want them to go smaller as I go. So I'm using my vanishing point and my ruler to help me out. Again, this can be tricky. So allow yourself a lot of grace, allow yourself a lot of time, and don't be afraid to just have fun exploring this. All right, so now I have my spaces for my windows. what I can do next to create some windows is I'm going to find that line that I made before. I'm gonna make some bigger windows at the bottom. So I'm going to draw some lines that are parallel to this window right here. I'm sorry, parallel to this top of the building right there. Then I'm going to go through. So these would be my first sets of windows. And then I'm gonna go through and create another set of windows. Again, these windows will get smaller as I go up. So now I have my second set of windows, and I can erase these lines right here. So now I can see, I'm gonna make that line a little bit darker. I can see I have one set of windows, second set of windows, and as I go up on my paper, my windows are going to start getting smaller and smaller. So there's my next set of windows, and now I'm gonna find a pencil eraser, which I normally don't use because I need to get into small spaces, and my nice white drawing eraser was too big for that. So next I'm going to draw one more set of windows. Again, thinking about keeping those lines parallel, getting them smaller and smaller as they go up. All right, and I'm gonna do one more set, and there's my final set of windows. And then I'm going to erase as I go up. Every other one I erase. And again, you can pause this video if you need help pausing the video. You know, have your parent, or just pause your video and restop and restart. So now this building is going back in space with some windows in it. And I love the way that looks. Now, since I'm done with this area, I can erase my guidelines that I've done for these areas so I can start seeing that beginning. And then you're just gonna go around your paper and just be creative, have fun, fill up the rest of your paper with these wonderful cityscape images. And again, be creative. That's what I'm telling you to do. Just be creative and have fun creating these. And when you're done with it, we will talk about what we're going to do with coloring. And at no means do I expect for you to get done with this piece of art today. There's just no way you're gonna get this done. This is gonna take you a long time. I've already been on this recording for quite a bit with you guys right now, just showing you how to do this. So here's my other building right here that I'm creating. Remember that arrow back. Just remember that at the bottom, you might want to, place your dots. If you want to, you can re-watch. But I've kind of given you an idea of how to make different things for your cityscape. And if you want to, one more thing before we go. So say you're like, oh my goodness, I am just, Miss Meyer, this is a lot of buildings. Well, you could just say for this space, you're going to have nothing here but just sky. And that's fine. So then you could start your next building here. And you can, make another fun building that's rounded, right here. Again, using your rounded method. And it's fun to repeat shapes. So again, I wanted to show you this real quick before we go. So right here, you could say, okay, so now I'm just gonna make this space. And now I'm not gonna worry, don't erase your vanishing point. Please don't erase your vanishing point. But so now I have a little space in between my buildings. So there's lots of different things that you can do with this. It's a really cool assignment. We will talk about coloring later. So today, really, all you needed for your assignment today is a pencil, eraser, ruler, white paper, and a bowl to create your circle. The next time we come together, hopefully we've got our circles somewhat started. When you come to your Zoom meeting next week, if you have questions about this, let's talk about it. Remember, guys, practice makes perfect. And just learning this 1-point perspective can be really, really fun. A lot of my students love this, and we just don't have time in 4th grade to do this when we're at school. And if you want to leave a building just like this, you can. If you don't want to put anything in your building, you don't have to. One more thing before we go. You could even just draw on this building, you know, straight lines down. So I'm going to put some dots here. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to try to keep them even. And then I'm going to put 1, 2, 3. And so now I'm going to go back to my vanishing point. Before we go, I just wanted to show you that you don't always have to have your building, you know, be so detailed. Just drawing some vertical lines, or I'm sorry, perspective lines that go back to the vanishing point can be enough. And look at that. Voila, my building's done. And you might want here, if you're creating that building, you might want to create a darker line so we can see that nice crisp edge right there so that your building goes back in space well for you. All right, friends, until we meet again, I would love to see how your progress is going. And when you go to submit your art, I will have in your assignments page how to submit your art. Again, have fun with this. Remember, you don't have to get this all done. The next Zoom meeting that we have together, we're going to practice some perspective lines and making some perspective lines in our Zoom. So I hope you like this, and I will look forward to seeing you soon. Take care, Cardinals. Remember, stop, pause, rewind, rework, redo. Have a great day.